It was a speck, searching for another speck in a fathomless jet-black sea. For 13 months it had tracked its prey, speeding up, slowing down, and speeding up again, like a bloodhound through the vastness. 13 months through danger-littered paths that had left it bent and broken, but alert, very alert. As it probed ahead, its silvery body reflected a reddish glow, the only hint of color in the otherwise ashen sea. It came from the target, growing bigger by the second. And now, 394 days after it began a 400 million mile one-way journey, fewer than 100 remained. Sensing the approaching moment, it slowed time down within it, splitting seconds into milliseconds, milliseconds to microseconds, each with a shred of information to help chart its next move. Across the void, its creators sensed it too. And 40 minutes later, the signal bugging they sent arrived. Following orders written long in the past, it began a series of steps known as approach sequence. From that moment on, the creators couldn't help anymore. From that moment on, it was utterly alone. Preparing for the heat, and fired 3 tongues of flame in the opposite direction. It fired again and again, and as inferno arose, but still the temperatures built. Deep in its brain, calculations whirred at light speed, computing commands to keep it on course, staccatos of impulses at just the right time. There could be no error as it raced down its corridor of final approach. Straying by centimeters meant incineration. 40 kilometers from target, there were clouds, winds, and the outline of something opaque below, closing at blinding speed. It jettisoned its shell at 6 kilometers high and released its parachute at 5. At 4, a splotch of terrain appeared, but it was a canyon, too dangerous to land in. Its fate was in the hands of its chute, winds, and luck. At 10,000 feet, it unfolded its legs spider-like to brace for impact. At 5,000 feet, engines ignited to cushion its fall. By 1,000 feet, it had slowed to 100 feet a second, slower but still too fast. Down it came, 500 feet at 50 feet a second, 100 feet at 20, 50 at 10, 10 at 2. Suddenly, small sense organs in its footpad touched something solid. Time to stop. Time to stop. Initiate arrival transmission. Standing on the sands of a plain 330 feet from the rim of a large crater in a place known as Planitia, it then trumpeted a signal home. It took 21.5 minutes for that signal to span 200 million miles to a tomb-like silent laboratory. It appeared as a data blip on a screen, and it meant, I am here, I am safe, I am beginning my work. And pops from champagne corks ran out in that room. Viking 1 had just become the first human object to land on planet Mars. Viking had little time to waste on the sands of Planitia. Locking its cameras on the scene surrounding it, it dissected it a line at a time. Left to right the dissection went, and the image was sorted, married to filters, and transformed into pixels. It took long minutes to store those pixels on tape, and minutes more to cast them back home to the Jet Propulsion Lab in California, where a black and white mosaic began unfurling on a screen like a butterfly from a cocoon. Pitted stone came forth, sharply focused pebbles, fine sand, the shadow of a landing strut that meant it was late in the Viking began taking more pictures. Panoramic scans of its landing site, three-dimensional views from different angles, zoom to the horizon and close-ups. It passed black and white images through red, green, and blue filters to get color, and used an American flag on its body to true them. An alien starkness was revealed in the weeks that followed, striking yet somehow familiar. There were wind-blown sands, rippling dunes, and rolling hills. There were desert vistas that smacked of home. There were towering volcanoes, ancient riverbeds, ice-colored polar caps. Well-known forces could be seen at work: landslides and erosion, winds and clouds, storms and seasons. But some things were different, very different. There was a towering volcano that dwarfed Mount Everest, a canyon on the equator, the width of North America. There was yellow clouds, carbon dioxide frost, mysterious craters. And most daunting of all, because it so looked like it belonged, there was absolutely no sign of life. But the creators of Viking remained undaunted. They knew not to trust first impressions. For Viking had been built to look deeper than the surface, to probe for life with two assumptions. First, it should be based on the element carbon, and second, wherever large life forms roamed, small ones did too, and would be far more abundant. If Mars was anything like Earth, a random plot of land wouldn't hold a single elephant, but a thimbleful of soil would be teeming with millions of microbes. So 8 days after landing, Viking began its real work. The equipment it carried, weather stations, laboratories, incubators, and furnaces, would normally have filled a building, but the creators had done their miniaturization job well. So on that 8th day, a small boom uncoiled and stretched 10 feet to the ground. A scoop extended from the end of it, grasped a cupful of soil, and placed it on the bed of a tiny railroad car. The car climbed up a track, disappearing into Viking's guts, and the first search for life on another world had, at long last, begun. Ten-year-old Chris Elkay would never know what made him switch on the old zenith that particular moment of that particular day when Viking sent back its images, but it would change his life. Propping his lanky frame against his bed, he mopped back a wave of sandy brown hair and leaned closer. His evergreen-colored eyes narrowed on the alien landscape and took in the pink sky's reflection. He shut them for a moment, trying to imagine what Chris Planitia would really be like, then dreamt of a time when, instead of imagining, he might touch the sands of Mars himself.